April 25th, 1974, a day Portugal still celebrates as the most beautiful revolution in modern history. Red carnations in rifle barrels, soldiers embraced by the people, tanks covered in flowers, almost 50 years of dictatorship collapsing, almost without a single shot being fired. But behind the official story of flowers, freedom, and young idealistic captains, there are layers, questions, and alternative versions that many Portuguese still discuss in private more than 50 years later. Welcome back to Seven Hills Tales, the place where we uncover the hidden stories and deeper truths of Portugal's past. This is April 25th, 1974, the day that changed Portugal forever. Today, we're going much deeper than the usual narrative. We're going to explore the full official story in rich detail, exactly as it's taught and celebrated every year. And then, we'll carefully examine the 7 most discussed unofficial versions and alternative theories that challenge what you were probably taught in school. Some of these theories are serious and well documented. Others are more controversial. But all of them deserve to be heard. So pull up a chair by the fireside, get comfortable, because this is going to be a long, honest, and respectful conversation about one of the most important and most debated moments in modern Portuguese history, Portugal's Carnation Revolution. By the early 1970s, Portugal was exhausted. For almost 48 years, the country had lived under the authoritarian Estado Novo regime, first led by Antonio de Oliveira Salazar, and later by Marcelo Caetano. The regime was built on censorship, the secret police, PIDE DGS, and a rigid colonial empire. But the biggest burden was the colonial wars that began in 1961 in Angola, then spread to Guinea-Bissau and Mozambique. Hundreds of thousands of young Portuguese men were sent to fight in Africa. The wars were becoming unwinnable, extremely expensive, and deeply unpopular among the military itself. In 1973, a group of young captains, many of them combat veterans from Guinea-Bissau, began to meet secretly. They were tired of the endless war and the regime's refusal to accept political solutions. They formed the Movimento das Forças Armadas, MFA. Their program was simple but revolutionary: democracy, decolonization, development, the famous 3 Ds. On the night of April 24th, the signal was broadcast on the radio. First the song E Depois do Adeus, then, after midnight, Grandola Vila Morena, a forbidden song by Zeca Afonso. At 4 a.m. on April 25th, the operation began. Captain Salgueiro Maia led troops from Santarém toward Lisbon. Major Otelo Saraiva de Carvalho coordinated from the Radio Clube Português. By morning, strategic points were occupied. Surprisingly, there was almost no resistance. The people came out into the streets, offering red carnations to the soldiers. By late afternoon, Marcelo Caetano and his government had fled to Brazil. General Antonio de Spínola became the face of the new Junta de Salvação Nacional. 4 people died, all civilians shot by the PIDE at their headquarters. Apart from that, it was almost bloodless. The dictatorship fell in less than 24 hours. That is the official story, the one celebrated every year with parades, carnations, and the official narrative of a heroic, popular, and almost miraculous revolution led by young captains. But as with any major historical event, not everyone accepts this version as complete. Over the decades, 7 main alternative narratives have emerged, some more credible than others, some quite fringe. Let's examine them one by one. The official narrative says Washington was caught off guard, but declassified documents suggest otherwise. Frank Carlucci, the U.S. ambassador at the time, and a man with deep ties to the CIA, played a high-stakes game of geopolitical chess. The theory? The U.S. knew the dictatorship was terminal. Instead of fighting the coup, they infiltrated it to ensure Portugal wouldn't become a Soviet satellite in Western Europe. Some even link this to Operation Gladio, a stay-behind secret NATO network designed to influence European politics from the shadows. For centuries, secret societies have been the silent architects of Portuguese history. It's no secret that many key MFA captains and high-ranking generals, including General Spinola, were high-level Freemasons. Critics argue the revolution wasn't a spontaneous military outburst, but a carefully orchestrated transition planned in Masonic lodges to ensure that the new republic would follow a specific secular and liberal agenda, bypassing the will of the more conservative masses. Did the regime commit suicide to save its elites? This theory suggests that Marcelo Caetano and his inner circle realized the African wars were a financial black hole. Instead of facing a violent civil war, they negotiated a soft landing with moderate generals. By allowing the coup to succeed with minimal resistance, the old elites managed to secure their fortunes and flee the country, mostly to Brazil, just hours before the tanks rolled into Lisbon. While the West watched the surface, Moscow was looking at the depths. This version claims that the MFA was heavily infiltrated by the Portuguese Communist Party, which had been trained by the KGB for decades. The goal? To turn a NATO founding member into a Marxist outpost. They argue that April 25th was only the phase 1 of a plan to establish a Soviet-style regime, a period known as the PREC, which nearly brought Portugal to the brink of a communist dictatorship in 1975. To those on the radical left, the real revolution was stolen. They believe that the original spirit of April 25th, focused on true power to the workers, was betrayed on November 25th, 1975. This theory claims that a counter-coup, backed by the Catholic Church and British-American intelligence, domesticated the revolution, turning a radical social transformation into a standard Western capitalist democracy. For them, the Carnations withered the moment the bankers returned to power. What if the empire wasn't lost, but traded? By the 70s, the global economy was shifting toward the European Economic Community, EEC. Portugal's colonial empire was a diplomatic and economic barrier to joining the club. This theory suggests that powerful Portuguese financial groups forced a rapid, almost chaotic decolonization to pivot the country's economy toward Europe. They sacrificed the colonies in Africa to guarantee Portugal's seat at the table in Brussels. The most haunting question remains: how did PIDE, one of the world's most efficient secret polices, fail to see a coup involving hundreds of officers? Some whistleblowers claim that PIDE had double agents inside the MFA, but was ordered to stand down by shadowy figures within the government. The mystery deepens when we look at how most PIDE high officials were allowed to escape or had their files lost during the chaos. Was the revolution a deal made in exchange for silence and immunity? After more than 50 years, what can we say with certainty? The official version is supported by the vast majority of historians and documents, but it is also true that powerful interests, internal and external, benefited enormously from how events unfolded. No revolution is ever purely spontaneous or purely heroic. Power is complex. The 25 de Abril gave Portugal democracy, freedom, and the end of the empire. But it also brought economic crisis, political division, and deep trauma that still echo today. So, what do you believe? Is the official story complete? Or do one or more of these 7 alternative versions contain important pieces of the truth? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Which theory surprised you the most? Which one do you find most convincing? If you enjoy deep, balanced explorations of Portuguese history, please hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Until then, keep questioning, keep searching. Obrigado for watching, and see you in the next tale.